Workshop item. So this is going to be for the discussion regarding sign regulations for the former Glen Plaza community request. And BJ, I guess we're going to start with you.
Yeah, so I'll start with the introduction. So at the September 12th village board meeting, staff was asked to organize a workshop to discuss the applicant's request in relation to staff's goals for the community's sign regulations. So we got a little workshop here coming up shortly. Just want to let you know this is a cursory research. We haven't done any comprehensive research of the sign code. We just looked at one model sign code just to give you an example. And also Janie Patch, our Economic Development Director, she looked at the economic value of signage. So we're going to have this workshop in two parts. Janie talking about the economic value, and Kyle is going to present some examples from the model code. So going forward, our long-term strategy is to update the sign code. Internally, we talked about how to accomplish it. One thought is to include the RFP for updating the land use map and the utilities master plan, and throw the sign code into it and bring it forward for your review. And with that being said, there are quite a few sign variances in the pipeline. They're listed at the end of the staff memo. So these are ongoing, and that kind of underscores the need to update our sign code ASAP. With that being said, I'll refer to Jenny to talk about the economic value of on-premise signage.
I'm just going to stand here so we don't have to move microphones around. Okay. So.
Remember, we don't see what you see.
Oh, you don't? On your screens in front?
Oh, okay. Maybe you switched over there.
Yes. So you should be, the economic value of on-premise signage should be in front of you right now. So the economic value of business signage has been studied and documented. In preliminary research, staff has found two related studies that are a widely quoted resource. So researchers in these studies looked at how changes in on-premise signage affect business performance. And those studies also took a look at the impact on consumers and the community, so they were kind of holistic in their research approach. The research provides three key takeaways that I'm going to highlight with some examples. The first takeaway recognizes that signs positively impact consumers and communities by making it easier for shoppers to obtain the information they need to make a purchase. The extent to which signs can be seen and are appropriately conspicuous is especially important. Researchers found that 29% of shoppers made store choices based on the information that was communicated by store signs as they see them. In another example, researchers estimated that an additional $10 million in sales tax revenue would be generated if every fast food outlet in the city of Los Angeles could add just one more sign. The second takeaway is that changes to signs directly impact business performance. On the positive side of this, roughly 60% of the businesses studied reported average sales increases of 10% following a change in signage. The addition of one sign yielded sales increases of 4.75%, an impact greater than that brought on by other building format or operational variables when you look to change those things. On the negative side, there was a hotel chain in the study that saw a 30% decrease in their occupancy after its highly visible sign was relocated to a less conspicuous location. The third takeaway is that there's a positive relationship between business performance and effective design, placement, and diversity of media that's used in signage. So, or overly restrictive sign codes do directly affect both businesses and consumers. The researchers found that 50% of consumers failed to find a desired business and drove on they just drove past it basically due to insufficient signage. A car dealership in a study found that adding a digital signboard increased goodwill through public service messages, as well as the service department revenue and customer traffic increasing. So in summary, when it comes to best practices, signage can be a win-win situation for businesses and communities. Communities win with being able to attract, retain, and see businesses grow. And successful businesses contribute to the fabric of their communities. And the tax revenues they generate help pay for schools, parks, and public services. So just to recap, there is empirical information out there about the economic value of signage, and working to approach sign code standards with businesses and the community in mind together seems to be the best practice method of approaching it. I'm going to turn it over now to Kyle.
So as Vijay stated in his introduction, as part of this process, village staff did perform preliminary research by exploring some resources available to us in terms of model sign codes and perhaps what other communities may be regulating their signs with. I just want to say up front that the following information is sourced just strictly from preliminary research done by staff. This is all just for discussion purposes. None of this is obviously set in stone. We're just trying to give you an idea of some of the factors that we need to explore with an update to our sign code. The study we specifically referenced is from 2009. It was undertaken to convey to communities the appropriate framework for formulating on-premise sign regulations that respect the perspective of both the community and the business interests within those communities. This project was funded by a grant from the Signage Foundation, which is a not-for-profit public foundation, and it's guided by the principles supported by the American Planning Association. The primary purpose of the sign is to be read by its intended audience. As such, signs should be located and sized so that the sign message is easily discerned and the intended audience, generally the passing motorist, can react and make necessary traffic maneuvers safely. The establishment of sign area and height requirements for each character area of the community was explored throughout this framework. Those character areas are context sensitive, and they vary, the sign regulations thus vary within those different community areas. These character areas also reflect the nature and diversity of development patterns. One example would be 143rd and Bell, near where the Homer Glen Bell Plaza PUD is being constructed at this time. That would be generally considered general commercial. So there are several primary factors for determining the maximum sign area. Those being the amount of time the motorist has to view the sign as they pass, the distance from which the sign would be viewed from the street, the amount of information that can be comprehended during that viewing time, the required size of the letters, ratio of the message area, that includes letters, logos, and symbols, to the sign's background, as well as the sign area and clarity are also influenced by lighting, colors, and the fonts that the sign is displayed in. So just to backtrack a little bit, again, the 143rd and South Bell Road commercial node would be considered general commercial. In this area, per this specific model sign code that we explored, they stated that signs in this area should have a minimum sign area of 60 square feet with a maximum sign area of 180 square feet. There are also considerations for determining the height of the sign. It is set forth in the model sign code that there should be a minimum and a maximum height for each character area within the community. The purpose of the minimum height is to ensure visibility above obstructions such as vehicles or other obstructions like landscaping. And so these are just images that we produce to kind of explain the clearance needed for signage in these various areas. The model sign code called for a 7-foot clearance for signs in the general commercial area, so that's displayed here, showing what a 10-foot sign from grade to the very top of the sign would look like if it met that 7-foot clearance. So the sign area is displayed as that strip towards the top. And then we also make comparisons to what various other signs would look like with an increase in height. So you see the 12-foot sign and a 14-foot sign with a 7-foot clearance. Furthermore, these regulations are intended to improve the visibility of signs above common obstructions, as I said, like vehicles. That is one of the primary concerns with the Homer Glen Bell Plaza PUD, is that the signs will not be visible above traffic. And that's why they're requesting the 15-foot freestanding signs. So the renderings produced here show an obstruction by a van of a 10-foot sign that would have had a 7-foot clearance, as well as a 14-foot sign with a 7-foot clearance. And just to note, the 14-foot sign is displayed here. That's those were different measurements from the model sign code. The applicant for Homer Glen Bell Plaza is requesting a 15-foot sign. We were just trying to display what the model sign code was discussing specifically. So this doesn't represent exactly what the applicant is requesting. Consideration of signs lower to the ground without that clearance is to be secluded to local retail or industrial streets where there is a generous landscaped buffer, where the traffic volume is generally lighter and the speed is relatively slow. So again, another table just showing what the general commercial area is called for within the model sign code in terms of maximum height of signs. Minimum would be 20 feet to a maximum of 35. And then looking forward, as VJ had indicated, staff's goal is to update the village's sign regulations with evidence-based revisions that promote greater sign flexibility for existing and future commercial tenants without diminishing the community's character and visual appeal. These changes are in anticipation of the community's growing commercial viability, and then as well we listed below some of the anticipated sign projects that should be occurring within the coming months.
So we also have the applicant to further explain his hardship. David?
My name is still David Mangerton. I'm an architect with offices at 1121 Lake Cook Road, Deerfield, Illinois. I jotted down some thoughts about what makes a shopping center a good shopping center or a location of a good shopping center. And I'm not a person who gets involved in the site selection. We're architects for this particular developer. We're doing his work for over 30 years. So I think I learned from osmosis what he thinks a good shopping center should be. So a good shopping center should have good street traffic, good visibility, good access from the roads. In our project at 143rd and Bell, we have some of those things. And what I'd like to show, can I show the plan? You can show.
We have it in our packet.
It's in the packet, though?
Okay. Because when when I start discussing this, I think it's good to have the graphic. So the 15-foot sign, I've been before you three times before about this 15-foot sign, and I appreciate the opportunity to present it again. The reasons that we felt the 15-foot sign was important was the fact that there are two lots on the interior that don't have street frontage. And because the shopping center has at the corner, and that one picture of the gas station, when you're driving down southbound on Bell, you can see that the gas station buries the interior lots and also obscures the buildings further down on 143rd and Bell. So going back to the site plan, the 15-foot sign is located where that dark circle is, along 143rd and the second one along Bell. And the intent is that those signs are wayfinding signs also. So if you're southbound on Bell or westbound on 143rd, you're only going to be able to use the Bell driveway because 143rd is right in, right out. And frankly, without the full access on Bell, this shopping center wouldn't exist because it would have restricted access to this site. There's a project in I think Orland Park that was a Walgreens store, and they lost their access on, it was 159.
from the range.
Okay. And that Walgreens closed it because of bad access. And
They were able to open up again, and they filled it.
as a different use.
Yeah, it's just
Different use. I think it was a medical use or something like that. So the variation request is to permit these two 15-foot signs, one located on 143rd and one on Bell. As a commercial property, the Homer Glen Plaza, a 9-acre property, is unique because it's situated behind the fueling station and car wash convenience store, which blocks visibility to its buildings. It has two remote entrances, one at the far northwest corner and one at the far southeast corner. Approaching the project, as I said before, from the north, southbound traffic, the gas station obscures the interior property and the buildings to the south. Likewise, approaching the site from the east, westbound, the gas station obscures interior property as well as the property to the east. Traffic westbound and southbound, as I said, would have to use the Bell Road driveway. The 15-foot high signs provide wayfinding direction to the commercial properties buried in the interior. And also any businesses in the multi-tenant buildings which wouldn't have a ground sign. A commercial property located at a corner is usually a desired location because of the traffic on adjacent streets. However, if your frontage is cut off by visual obstructions such as a gas station, those 15-foot high signs would give commercial customers an opportunity to find buildings that would not be visible. Proposed buildings on lots 1 and 2, like buildings on lots 3, 4, 5, and even 8, are like outlot buildings with facade and ground sign exposure. But lots 6 and 7 have no street exposure. The 15-foot high proposed ground signs, which I find well within the bar graphs that were presented by staff, would give the opportunity to advertise for lot 6 and 7, which are internal to the site, as well as the multi-tenant buildings. So, I mean, that's my discussion on the hardship and the reason why we, on behalf of the owner, we're seeking the 15-foot high signs.
We're discussing this particular PUD or signs in general.
Well, I think specific to this case for now, and we'll come back to the sign for the near future. So we kind of give you some preliminary research info. I think Trustee Gray, you want to know what the thresholds might be going forward. I know, I think the other comment was also look at the 159th Street corridor when we actually do the sign code update. So this is just a cursory review for you to decide on this case.
Right, we're not deciding.
No, not tonight.
We are specifically going to discuss the merits of the 143rd and Bell project. Okay.
This is just information.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, Mr. Mingert, that you keep referring to the gas station. You almost refer to it as if it was some unknown, though, and we all know it's been sitting there for quite some time. So when you say that the in-lots or the interior lots are obstructed by that, you're probably right, although Lot 4 and Lot 3, I believe, would have left very little window there anyhow for viewing through there on the corner. In some of the pictures we looked at, when I look around at signs, a lot of the signs that are in the village right now, we have a 10-foot cap right now on these monument signs. And most of them aren't even built to 10 feet. They're built much lower than that. And I don't know if that's because they're capping out on the maximum square footage size that they have for their faces or what, they're keeping them low. There are certain ones on Bell Road, I know Trustee Rogers and I discussed them. Some of them were, you're right, they're impacted by the cars parking, one on either side and you can't see the sign. But I believe most of the ones on your project here are going to be out in the grass, essentially, out in front. And they're also going to be perpendicular to the roadway. Is that correct?
Right. No,
So the ones where we see a van parked in front of the sign is disingenuous because, that van would have to be up on the grass and turn perpendicular to the roadway in order to obscure the signs that you've already got out there, the 6, I believe, that are 6 or 8 that are going to be ringing this particular development. So I just wanted to make certain that we all understood, there are different types of monument signs. A 10-foot monument sign on the grass, not being impacted by parked cars or traffic, is a whole different thing than maybe where the UPS store is, if anybody's familiar with that on Bell Road, where they're down kind of in a gully, I believe, and their sign is built up on a big pediment. Those are the types of things I wanted to discuss as far as the sign codes go, because there's more than just one monument sign. There are multiple different kinds. Where it's going to be located is going to impact how high it should be and what the space should be. I don't necessarily think, and again, I don't want to say that I'm against 15 feet necessarily. I want to have this discussion, and I also want it to be the fact that a 15-foot sign there is going to be all of 15 feet. It's not going to be impacted by either parked cars or by traffic necessarily. And I don't think anybody's going to have either the forethought of mind or the eyesight, to be real honest with you, to be looking westbound down 143rd Street from Bank of America and see what's on that sign, and also know that I need to be in the left lane to make a left-hand turn here so I can get in over here. So again, I appreciate that these are part of your proposal, and that maybe they are warranted after we have that discussion. But I also just wanted to really point out that some of those visuals don't necessarily belie the hardship that's here.
I would like to say that the 10-foot ground sign, and I've been in communities, by the way, some communities ask the developer to create a sign plan, depending on what the subdivision or what, and I respect the planners or whoever designs sign ordinances, because it's very difficult to think of all these different items. I go into towns and they say, you have a maximum for a ground sign of, say, 10 feet, but we want landscaping at the bottom. Well, you're lifting, and in the case of our project, we have the landscaping at the bottom of the signs, and we raise the text to make sure that the landscaping doesn't obscure the sign. But that's some of the silliness that I see in other communities. As I said, the buildings that are facing 143rd and Bell Road are pretty much like outlet buildings. You see them, you have a wall sign, you have a ground sign. I'm not worried about those. For the multi-tenant buildings, and we're still not sure whether lots 1 and 2 will be one building or two buildings. That's really part of what this 15-foot high sign is all about. It's to give them an opportunity to be advertised. Like Lot 5 has Taco Bell, and part of the deal with Taco Bell is they wanted their own sign. That was the deal. So they got the ground sign by themselves. Well, now there's going to be 3 or 4, maybe 3 tenants after them, and we need to give them a ground sign, so that they would be on the Bell 15-foot sign. So that's part of the logic.
I mean, I will tell you from the other side that when you develop projects, the national tenants, you know, if you're looking for good national tenants, they're going to want this kind of signage. We've lost national tenants because we weren't able to provide them the signage that they wanted. That's probably one of the first things, one of their first lease clause outs that they get is if they don't get their required signage. We actually have an exhibit in the lease that's all strictly for signage, so keep that just in mind. The national tenants do need pretty good signage. But that being said, I have a problem with signs when they end up turning out like the ones that you can't even read, you know, like on 159th Bell. There's so many tenants on that sign. I have no idea, you can't tell anything.
There's 2 of them, they're right across the street, so both of them.
Yeah, both of them. You know, in the shopping center that we built when it was currently Willow County, we were limited on the amount of tenants that we could put on that signage. And we lost national tenants because we were not able to get them on that. So I see both sides of it too. You know, I can't kick off a tenant that's on there. It might not be a national tenant, nor put the national on when in your lease, you know, we gave it to them.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with Trustee Rogers on the national tenant side. I think I've said it 1,000,000 times. We're going to turn away very viable businesses come near the future. And while I don't see the need, I'm not opposed to a 15-foot sign personally. While I do see the need on the interior buildings, the one thing that site lacks is it's not so congested like 159th and Bell that you need better signage because of the congestion factor. I am not opposed to a 15-foot sign. I think there's got to be some variations of things that we're going to have to improve. They're going to come hard and heavy to us in the near future, so we better be mindful of that.
So right now, our code allows for 4 divisions on a multi-tenant sign, is that correct? Yes. So the two proposed 15-foot signs can only have 4 divisions as is.
For the current code.
For the current code. Well, we would be probably, unless you change the variance request, would be deciding this under the current code. Because we won't have time to update the code before this comes before us again. So we would be deciding this under the current code in making a variance against the current code, which is 10 feet, 4 divisions, 65 square feet. So you'd be at, what, about 16 square feet per division on our current code. And what you're proposing is at 15 feet, 120 square feet, you'd be at a 30 square foot per 10 feet.
Well, actually, the sign that I actually raised the masonry because I was concerned about the cars. That one rendering that one of my associates created showed traffic, and so we kept the sign at 15 feet, and it's really now close to 100 feet, 100 square feet, not 120. I think it's 101.6. So what your current packet shows that. So that's divided by 4. So that would be roughly 25 square feet each.
But the variance request originally was
Correct.
15 feet,
120, correct.
15 feet high, 120 feet.
Correct.
So is there a restriction in our current code on the width of the sign?
No.
Okay, so you could have still gotten your 120 square feet, lifted it up as many feet off the ground as you wanted and just gone out wider. I mean,
Correct.
technically, so.
Correct. Correct. Again,
But again, if you're now saying that it's down to 15 feet and it's 100 square feet per face as opposed to 120.
correct. Correct.
Very
Because
close to that.
I mean, it still gives a pretty decent sign for the tenant. 2.5 feet times 10 roughly.
I think your concern would be the better landscaping around the sign to make it look appealing.
And that's what we've done.
We still have signs in town that aren't all that attractive.
No, I don't agree more. Either from the landscaping or like Trustee Rogers said, they look like, to use a Trustee Bury euphemism, the NASCAR signs, they got all those little signs all over it. It just was in there. I think after a while, the whole thing was.
I can echo what Trustee Rogers was saying regarding the larger national retailers having those part of a contract where they have to be on the top of the monument sign, and as in the case of Taco Bell wanted a specific thing where they were by themselves. Actually, Dollar Tree is one of those. Dollar Tree really wanted what I originally came in with, but we were back up against the wall regarding their opening and so on, and they relented and said, no, we're happy with what we came in with finally. But that package that Dollar Tree gave us was part of the ordinance, part of the contract, part of the lease. So they went back. But you're right, they could have backed out.
And then the multi-tenant signs that you just, the 4 divisions on the multi-tenant signs, they are not exclusively for the interior lots.
No.
Is what you just said about Taco Bell
Correct.
taking the monument out front.
Correct.
Now, the 2 who might locate adjacent to them would be on the multi-tenant.
Right, and the contracts and leases are written that maybe if the tenant is a small tenant, and and he's happy, and it's all negotiation with the landlord. He may not even get a place on that pylon sign because the landlord is saving it for somebody in the interior.
The other thing that happens with signage, and I'm only speaking for myself, is in new development, we sell those to offset the cost of them. So the top one will for $5,000, the bottom one will go for $3,000 to the whatever the case may be. The national tenants will, like I said, always, I just know from experience that we've lost national tenants on Bell Road.
I can vouch for that.
Well, let's see, we're discussing this, we should change what we need to change. I mean, every year things change. Everyone's bigger and better. The signage, I agree, especially get some older people like me, can't see it until you're on top of it. And if there's 4 or 5 or 6 of the Trustee Rogers just got them saying, one up on Bell Road. It's got 15 signs, 3 of them are the same. As you're going by, if you take the time to look at it, you're going to rear end somebody. So we need to change it to where it's more accessible.
The best practices talk about actual, sign lettering size relative to the size of the road, the speed of the traffic, the distance the sign needs to be viewed from, and you can, instead of saying how many panels, you're going to limit how many panels are on a sign face, you actually just make sure that the letters are sized so that it can be read. That's the more important thing, and that's more of the best practice approach.
And it's
I
safer.
do like the signage that they show where it's, you know, it's not a box sign, it's kind of the one that has pizza on it, you know, and his drawing. I do, you know, like that. I think it's a lot classier looking than the big box signs. And I like your idea of, you know, as long as the font size is acceptable, whatever can fit it would be better, you know, than limiting it to just 4 tenants. That's hard. It's really hard. Especially if you have a retail space, let's say the retail one of my tenant or a tenant is in a 5,000 square foot retail, now he vacates, and I can split that into 2 2500s, which is kind of, you know, supercuts or that kind of thing. I'm still stuck with only one sign. But if I can have it, if I like the idea that of the font size as opposed to limiting how many can go on there.
It just
I
gives
don't know
landlords
I don't know
more
what size it
flexibility.
is, you know, I don't know what that size is. As far as the height on this project, 15 doesn't bother me because there's no residential around it. You know, when we go and start getting closer towards residential, 15 would be a lot, you know, because of the lighting, it's more intrusive. So for this one, I would agree. It's a tough piece to develop. I appreciate the fact that they're doing it. The two lots that I would say are probably one of the more difficult lots to market are already being built, because those are the ones that are more hidden behind the corner. But for this one, this piece, I would be comfortable with the 15. But I can't say that, you know, it's tough for me to say because I get 159th Street, there is some residential there, you know, and I would be one perfect one, you know, if they're proposing the 15, how intrusive is that going to be to the homes in the back? You know, I would have to see it to visualize it, so I can't say for every one I would be okay, but I can't even, there's really no houses anywhere around here.
There's really no houses right now where the farm is and where
But there will be.
they still have trees right there. They don't have to cut down, keep the commercial separate. And there's still.
That's what I'm saying, I can't say for all of them, I know it would have to be something.
Any residential.
And did you say you were comfortable with increasing the amount of divisions then too? That you
If
would be okay with?
If the font was large enough, yeah. Or if by giving, you know, I don't know how much bigger, how many more, I think you probably only end up with 1 or 2 more if you went with a font size that's acceptable. Because your square footage isn't changing. The overall square footage is just that font size, so I don't even know how many more you'd fit on there. But if the font size was all consistent, I'd actually really like that as an old lady with really bad eyes.
Maybe tonight.
Well, are we trying to decide something
No.
in the near future for him, or we're just, this is our starting point, we're going to have to?
Well, I'd also like to know, in regards, I don't want to make you stand there forever, but there's the possible things coming forward are 2 more things for your particular development, right? Like auto parts, wall sign, and the new retailer. Are these not things that we've already crossed off our list when we did all the variances on the wall signs? Are these?
I'm not aware of O'Reilly seeking a variance. I don't know that they are.
Because we already passed a bunch of wall sign variances, I believe, at the first
Correct.
flush on this project.
Correct.
There's like 8 or 10 of them.
So I guess number 2 is still under negotiation, where we said a new retailer, so that's not coming.
Right, and I don't mean to push you to divulge anything that isn't public knowledge, and I'm just saying, if you Are you being approached to change something that we've already passed a variance on? Or is this a new bit of one of those buildings that we have not seen yet?
Staff knows that the permit application for the O'Reilly permit has walked into the village, but it's in the process of being checked in, and it hasn't landed in planning and zoning yet, so we actually haven't seen what they're proposing. But we understand that that would be a wall sign.
Right, but I'm saying that back there, it was like in April, we passed about 8 or 10 different variances to wall signs. And obviously back then, there were no tenants that were known. So there were variances that were requested, presumably by me, that was knowing what was coming along, and they were just, trying to get all of those ducks in a row to accommodate those once those leases fell in place. And I'm saying now, is O'Reilly and this other one that we don't know who the specific retailer is, are those two new ones, or are those going to change variances that we've already passed?
We need to be able to answer that question when we get a chance to look at what O'Reilly's actually applying for,
Right.
maybe as soon as tomorrow.
Hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I guess from what you've heard here, is it the direction, are you going to work with him, or I'm not sure what we're.
Just coming back to the board on October 20th.
Yeah, it's coming back to the next
That's
board.
why I just want to make sure we're moving in a direction so that, it's not creating ruts in his car coming back and forth for no reason.
I think this is moving in the right direction, and I certainly have an open mind, and I think valid points have been made on the need. The exhibits referenced in some of this, that Trustee Gray talked about with the van, and these photos, these are from the study that's being referenced in here.
Those were produced by staff just to represent what the study was discussing. And yes, they aren't representing exactly the situation that would be happening here. The van was more for scale, so you could see an actual car in front of the signs.
I would say just a comment as we go further on model sign code. Anytime I see something funded by a signage foundation, my guess is that board is probably made up of 80% sign companies, and so not that
Doesn't invalidate at all.
Yeah.
but yeah, right. I without even having to look it up, I guarantee if we pull an annual report on the signage foundation, it's going to be funded by sign companies.
Yeah,
So
and
let's take that with a bit of a grain of salt.
Absolutely, point taken. But we also noted that it was there were principles that the American Planning Association uses as well as guiding principles, and they were basing it off that. So you're absolutely right. And if you get into it, they say right up front who they are. So
I was encouraged that what we're asking for kind of is in the middle or the bottom of that study. And we didn't know about that study when we originally did the project, so.
When it's funded by sign companies, I'm not surprised it would be the middle or lower. That's kind of the point there, but and that's not related to this. But between now and the 24th, I certainly will continue to do my research on this, but I don't mind. I think it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody to think I don't have an open mind. I do. I wanted to have this discussion because this is important. This is what we needed to have before we just signed off on 15-foot or whatever becoming any kind of new standard or a new threshold. So, I certainly have an open mind. I actually work in the graphic arts, so I know all about signage as well, but it's a matter of this is going to lay a foundation for us going forward, which I think I stated a couple times in the past, that we have some other areas that are going to hopefully be blossoming, and this is going to impact that some.
So when can we see some ideas of what we can make some changes to work with this company.
Are you talking about this case or the sign code update?
Well, I mean, if we're going to do it, why would we just do one if we can do it to where we're getting consensus across the board of what we can do and can't do? So otherwise we're going to be coming back and forth every couple of months to do it again.
So we're going to have a discussion internally how to speed up the process for the sign code update. And
No, Mayor, I think we should just do, my opinion, we should just handle this case as a one piece. You're just pushing it, it's just rushing it through. Because if you do a whole new sign ordinance, you have to really think about what's
I'm not
coming
saying
down.
make a whole new sign ordinance, we get a rough idea of what we can do, because if we don't do something with it, O'Reilly's coming up pretty soon, so we're going to be right back to square one again, where we have to go back and try to figure out what we're doing. If we can come up with a consensus in here, we're looking in this area,
This is our
not looking all over here, we're looking in this area right here to see what we can do. Because, like I said, you don't want to talk this to death. So let's figure out what we can and what we cannot do, and or what we should or what we shouldn't do, but not one piece at a time.
I agree.
We'll be here every meeting for the next 5 years with everything that we do. No, I know, but I agree with George. We need to have some parameters. I'm not saying every foot in town is going to be 50 feet. There's parameters for certain areas, for certain restrictions.
Certain buildings, not everyone wants a giant sign either. So let's give them a heads up of what they can and what they cannot do, rather than chasing them around, trying to figure out what we can.
And I have something that is helpful for Jane in CED to market Homer Glen, if we have a clear understanding of what we're willing to take. It's hard for us to market to the National Times when the answers are always like, well, I'll have to go and ask. Instead of saying, yeah.
It's like buying a car. You constantly got to go back to somebody, can we do this, can we do this? Let's get a parameter of what we can and what we cannot do. It makes it a lot easier for everyone in here to be able to work with it. Emery, you have something you want to-
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So two things. Number one, we wanted to bring this to your attention because I know I heard from several trustees that you wanted this ability to have this type of discussion to get in depth, looking at the bigger picture. But knowing, at least from staff's perspective, that that was the short-term discussion, that there's longer-term issues that need to be resolved. So in relation to this particular project, we would be bringing this back to you for your final determination on those 15-foot monument signs, what you want to do. In regards to your specific comments, Mayor, just as a background for those that weren't at last night's Community Economic Development Committee, one of the items that was reviewed by staff is an item that would be coming forward. That is an item out of the village's new strategic plan dealing with updating the comprehensive plan, but looking at very targeted areas. And one of the components that was outlined by staff last night was talking about this particular issue, the sign code update. So you can imagine the amount of discussion you already had tonight. Sign code updates can be rather complex because in some of the discussions I've had with you individually, I know one of the things some of you have talked about is do you have different parameters for different corridors? So do you have a set of guidelines for 159th because of the volume of traffic you're going to have on there versus 143rd versus Bell Road? There's different corridors and different areas you may want to look at, which then complement or get into some of the other issues you may also be discussing, such as lighting. Do you have different parameters for your big commercial corridors that you're going to be looking at? So what we had talked about as far as this comprehensive plan update being very targeted is looking at, and I don't remember all the particular items, but there were about 4 or 5 items, and fast tracking certain components. And one of the 2 items that would be fast tracked, that would be the very first part that the consultant would do, which would be the sign code update. So it would be a request for proposal that would come before you in the next month or 2, I forget what our timeline of bringing it to you for review. And I believe the village had budgeted $105,000. We would use a component, a part of that, because we're only doing very targeted areas. So we can go whatever direction you want, but sign code updates can be very complex. And so we were looking to get some outdoor resources to help us to bring that to you and fast track it so that, and we wanted to identify which are the items out there, which are the signs, so it didn't come as a surprise to you, but fast track it, so then you can look at it holistically, so that if you want different elements for different parts of the community, you can accomplish that with a sign code update.
Yep.
Thank you.
I like the idea of consulting on this.
Just so we don't sign.
Yeah.
All right, is there any more discussion on this group right now, or let you guys do the work? Let's get the ball rolling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any old business?
I just, relative to old business, and I'm not sure if this is wrong or not, I was just wondering if we could, since the attorney's here, if we could have some kind of a update on the Bell Road house.
That's the house, the demolition house.
Right.
Yeah, that's
And then the idea was we want to wait 30 days after that judgment was entered to make sure nothing is challenged. There's a 30-day window that somebody could come in and say, hey, we're going to exercise for no reason at all. After 30 days, they have to actually show that they've been, why they ignored everything.
So as of right now, it's our liability.
I asked Joe also to reach out to the Will County Historical Society just for one last pass if there was anything they wanted in there, a bracket, a doorknob, anything. Right, I know that.
Are we gonna let them go in there?
I know everybody has said that there was nothing of value.
Yeah.
Just like I
Get
said,
something
when
in
it's
writing.
gone, it's gone. If there was one thing that maybe they keyed on that, still told the sale of the property, why not give them one more chance in this 30-day, area anyhow, so.
I just want to
it's dangerous to go in there.
Yeah, that's my.
That's why I'm not.
But we'll shoot some.
Send it to Ron.
I'm Joe.
Joe's already been in there.
Joe's like, I'm not going in.
I've been, this time I geared up.
I don't think anybody's ever going to accuse you of asking them too much if they want. But if we don't make that announcement, that you may hear it in the end. Why didn't you tell us? So, once the thing is down.
Well, we're going to sell it, we're not taking it down, we're going to sell it as is, and let them take it down. We don't need to incur any more costs of it. So, the way that we have talked about it.
That always the case? I thought we were going to demo it.
It's
That's
going
up
to
to
be
the
cost of
board.
demo because
That's
I'm
up to the
guaranteeing you there's some remediation that needs to be done.
They're
before
going to not be
it
able
goes
to
down.
sell it after that because it's still the garbage. Let's get rid of it, let them do it. But I did hear from one person that there still is one outstanding tax buyer that is going to, or has a ball rolling, or is going to the merit limits.
So you mean somebody that's going to challenge this?
that's what I'm hearing. Just one person says they have an house, we don't know it, and they're saying that Will County told them that they own it. So, you know what, you just gotta let it shake out, let's see what happens.
Clock is ticking.
Yeah. Because we waited this long, there's nothing we can do until we can.
Yeah, but we're not going to demolish the house.
No.
Anyhow, it's just going to be sitting there day 31 anyhow.
Right. I don't want that house touched. I mean, if someone wants to go through it, knock your socks off. You're gonna have to wear a hazmat suit, you're gonna have to wear air filtration. It is nasty.
I know they've looked at it in the past, and they may just refer back to their old notes and say, no, thank you.
Right.
And that's
So,
let's record that.
yeah. Well, like you said, it could be a week, it could be a couple more weeks before it's done. But then from there, you talk about it's just.
I know we've spent a lot of money trying to serve anybody interested who may be interested in that property, going back months.
It just has to get that thing done, get it knocked down. You do know that you have a couple people, but we've got to put out the bid, make it fair and transparent.
But what else?
The house, once we get the, we're just going to
the
sell it off.
person, right, just sell it up.
Yeah, and let them
I wasn't sure
take
if you
the
were
garage
saying
down,
that
take the house down,
demolition.
take the trees down. Okay, was it the only thing you had no business, or,
Yes,
okay, any other old business? Any new business?
yes, I'm sorry, I know it's getting late, but, and I don't believe there was any, I don't recall us having any input or even
feedback on it, but I would just ask that maybe if we could look at the trick-or-treating hours this year. I did a little bit of research last year, and people were upset that they ended at 7. When I look at all of the towns around here, they all end at 7. But when I looked at the school's hours, the kids don't even get out till 3:15, which means then they get on the bus and then they're not even off the bus till maybe 3:30. I'm not totally sure on that. So our hours have always been 3 to 7. And I just thought maybe it'd be more family friendly if we could make it, 3:30 to 7:30 or 4 to 8 or something that gives it a little bit more time for the kids and the families to kind of get together in a group and decide who's staying home and answering the door and who's going out. And these kids get out so early that people aren't even home to answer the door.
Well, I just don't want to answer the door.
Yeah, then you just turn your lights off. I mean, I've been trick-or-treating about 3 or 4 years that the lights are off. I don't knock.
I don't think we should change the time, because sometimes they do come a little after 7. I don't think we should.
Well, then if we know they're gonna come after 7, let's just say it's okay, you can come after 7. Like I said, these kids aren't even out of school when we're posting the time. They're getting
2.5 hours is enough.
trick-or-treating at 3 o'clock. Well, I don't think they're gonna get out of school in time.
My kids get home at 3:30.
I'm sad, like, here, just regarding Carrier.
I would be perfectly fine with 4 to 8 because it gives them time to breathe when they get home. Parents just get home from work. They want to go with their kids.
Then you also have to think about all the people that are working at 8 o'clock at night. That's when they're trying to relax because they've got work the next day.
I'm one of those people, they come to my door, I give them candy until they're blue in the face with it. So, I don't know.
You're a good resident.
I am. I even give them the neighbor's candy.
Something to consider, if you don't want to consider this, fine. I'm just saying, kids are coming out of school when you post in the hours.
And what are you're looking from 3:30 to what, 7:30, or do you want 8?
I think that to start it at 3 is silly. So start at 3:30 and then I would be happy with 7:30 or 8. It's fine. Just get, like they said, and again, I don't have kids. I've never had one trick-or-treater where I live, so I'm not doing this purely out of my own.
This year.
Yeah, purely out of my own. At my own, it's not, this is nothing that's gonna benefit me at all in any ways. I'm telling you what I'm hearing in the community is that to have it at those hours, you're not even giving the kids a chance to get home, to get their costumes on, to get their brothers and sisters, to allow them to have to go try to meet up with their friends if they want to go, and then the next thing you know, it's like 4:30 and they're running around. They have.
Well, what they do most of the time with the kids on Halloween day, they allow the kids to come to school in costume. Peter, I'll tell you, you still got the little kids, As for me, 7 o'clock, absolutely fine. By that time, they got enough to have 10,000 cavities within a week. How much you get, and they all, no matter what you do with it, they're still getting it. You don't have kids, you don't know how it is when they get all wired up from all this stuff. I don't know. And most of the time, you have kids and you have candy left over. I'm just.
I'd be okay with 8, only because I know I've run up, and like I said, I don't sometimes get home until after 7 o'clock, so sometimes I miss.
Do you go out to the tree? You're going to miss it.
No, but so you want to be there and see kids coming. I know you have a mile-long driveway, Beth, but it's, it's fun to see the kids.
Is the 7 not based upon almost darkness at this point?
But it's
because we won't set the clocks until the.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I think, that's why I'm guessing 7 o'clock's been taken into account that kids walk around neighborhoods after dark in dark costumes, maybe more of an issue. Is one of the things. For us, 3 to 7, it's.
I think that might have been the case like when we were younger, because I believe in the last 10 years, we moved when we changed the clocks.
Correct.
So we probably, when we were kids, moved the clocks before Halloween. Now we're moving them after. So, the darkness is coming on us sooner. And so maybe that's why 7 o'clock, and I don't know.
It's all, I can't tell you if you've ever.
Halloween's about dark.
Quit in the middle of a block because the clock struck 7. you know?
No, you still get stragglers no matter what. That still will ring the doorbell at 8 o'clock, 8:30, sometimes 9 o'clock. I think that's when most people just put the ball on the patio and you take whatever you want. Well, you know.
Well, this decision is really going to contribute to world peace.
I look at it this way. I consider Halloween when it starts to make, like these people calling about political opinions. What about your health insurance? It's just, you know what, some people, when they want to get.
You know, maybe we go the half hour, maybe we leave it at 7. It's not going to really contribute
This
to my
just
life.
spiraled out of control.
I'm not a fan of it. I think 7 o'clock, all the other villages and cities around us do the 7 o'clock. I think it's just.
All right, Scrooge, I get it.
It's
7
not
o'clock.
Scrooge, right?
Perfect, 7 o'clock it is.
That's why the paper and trees, right?
It's coming this year.
Rain will knock it out.
And the only reason they don't go to fast is because they can't walk that far.
Yeah, because most of the kids, if you really watch them, if the house is far back, they don't go to they go to the next one. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
I so do.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned.